We'll start in five, four, three, two, one.
Your Honors, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
This is a continuation of the public panel interview by the Judicial and Bar Council of candidates vying for the position of Legal Education Board Chairperson or as regular member representing the Integrated Bar of the Philippines or as regular member representing the law students sector. Your Honors, the candidates for interview this afternoon are the following. Mr. Generoso Ignacio S. Jacinto,
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
regular member representing the law students sector. May I request the candidates to please raise your right hand so that I can administer the oath. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in this public panel interview by the Judicial and Bar Council?
Yes, Your Honor.
I do.
So help you God. Thank you. Thank you. Your Honors, the first for interview this afternoon is Mr. Generoso Ignacio Jacinto. And the first to interview the candidate will be the Honorable Judge Franklin J. De Monteverde. Judge De Monteverde, sir.
Thank you, Attorney Ed. Good
Thank you,
afternoon,
sir.
Mr. Jacinto.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Yeah, how do I call you? Jean or Iggy or what?
Jiggy would do fine, Your Honor.
Jiggy. Okay, Jiggy.
Yes, Your Honor.
You are 24 years old. And in what year are you
Yes, Your Honor.
in the College of Law?
I am currently a third year law student, Your Honor.
Oh, third year. When will you graduate?
Hopefully next year, Your Honor, by 2022.
2022 pa. Okay. You are presently the legal researcher and comptroller of the Generoso Jacinto Jr. Law Firm.
Yes, Your Honor.
Who is this Junior, Generoso Jr.? Your brother or your
That
father?
is that is my father, Your Honor.
Father. Okay. You're not the third. Jacinto the third.
No, Your
Because
Honor,
your
because
father is a junior.
I have an Ignacio in my first name, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, presently, you are still with the Ateneo de Manila University as consultant?
No longer, Your Honor, because of the pandemic. The Office of Student Activities had to roll out some costs, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, medically, okay. When did you have your laboratory tests conducted?
I had my laboratory tests, Your Honor, prior to the first deadline for submission of requirements. So this should have been around
Was it in August
most likely, Your
of last
Honor,
year?
July or August of 2020.
Yeah, because my record here says that you had a test on August 23 of
Okay,
2000.
that is
Okay.
correct, Your Honor.
And after certifying you to be physically, medically, or mentally fit, your doctor has this statement. After evaluation and review of available laboratory results, it is my view that he can assume his new work at any time.
Yes, Your
Why
Honor.
didn't he go directly into certifying you as medically fit? Because your medical record shows otherwise. You have adverse findings.
I cannot speak for the doctor, Your Honor, but I believe he thought that was the proper form to address the Honorable Council, Your Honor.
No, we don't have to go to him. You answer me. Your complete blood count shows that you have a white blood cell neutrophils high. What do you mean by that? Was that not explained to you by your doctor?
He explained it as a minor it was a signal that there was an infection when the blood test was taken, but he said it's something that was managed by antibiotics, Your Honor, and that is why it was not a hindrance to assuming office, Your Honor.
Okay. And then your urinalysis shows a plus protein and blood plus plus. This was not explained to you also?
This the additional protein could have been, Your Honor, due to my eating more meat. So it could the excess protein could have mixed with my blood and was excreted, Your Honor.
Your blood chemistry shows that you have a high fasting blood sugar and uric acid. Again, this was not explained to you?
The It was explained to me, Your Honor, that the elevated levels of my blood sugar was it was not something to be concerned of. It was at the beginnings of it's not yet to be considered as diabetic, and
Okay.
it was yes, Your Honor.
How high was your blood sugar level?
Um, I do not remember the exact level, Your Honor, but I do remember that my doctor informed me that it was borderline entering into a diabetic stage, a pre-diabetic.
Okay. And lastly, your electrocardiogram shows that you have sinus trac- trachycardia. Tachycardia.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can you explain what that is?
Your Honor, I'll admit I do not remember how it was explained to me,
This,
Your Honor.
this is ECG, ha? This is heart mo ito. Oh, so
Yes, Your
better
Honor.
be careful. You might think that you are fit,
Yes, Your
but with
Honor.
these findings, you better watch out. Huh? Uh,
Yes, Your Honor.
okay. Briefly, tell us about yourself and your credentials in relation to your application in the LLB as the regular member representing the law sector, law student sector.
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. I'm Generoso Ignacio Salvador Jacinto. I am
Mhm.
a third year law student at the University of the Philippines College of Law, and I am applying to represent the law student sector to the Legal Education Board. I graduated with a degree of Bachelor of Arts in History, a minor in English Literature, prior to pursuing a degree in law. Part of my leadership experiences, which I believe will be able to aid me in being an effective and efficient representative of the law students to the Legal Education Board, was my prior experience as being the Council Scout representative of the Quezon City Council Boy Scouts of the Philippines, which involved representing the uh, different scouts, boy leaders of Quezon City to the local council executive board. As the council scout representative, it was my duty to understand the needs of the different scouts, ranging from the Kid Scouts all the way to the Rover Scouts of our local council. And this entailed speaking to the different scouts through the different district representatives, understanding the needs, particularly the needs of our scouts for their professional scout advancement and leadership advancement. And through this, we were able to gather inputs from our scouts on how we could better service them as a council um, to be able to provide them with opportunities for advancement, which led to the institutionalization of localized training courses and advancement courses of our scouts. Later on, I became a regular board member of the Caloocan City Council of the Boy Scouts of the Philippines. And even though I was not the Scout representative, as the youngest member of the local council at the time, I took it upon myself to coordinate with the elected Scout representatives so that we could further understand the needs of the Scouts. Having been a Scout myself, we were able to institutionalize Scout representation at the grassroots levels by institutionalizing the Council Scout Youth Forum, which was an avenue for our Scouts to be heard from the grassroots levels all the way to the local council. I
Jiggy,
also, yes, Your
Jiggy,
Honor.
you are a lifetime
Yes, sir.
member of the Philippine Mental Health Association.
Yes, Your Honor.
What do you do there as a member?
Um, as a member, we advocate mental health advocacy in the Philippines. So from time to time, the association may call upon us to participate in their activities and to promote their activities. But
Such as what?
particularly,
Such
I
as
have
what?
been serving the PMHA has the Lingkod ng Kabataan Youth Program, which
Okay.
it is a mental health program that not just focuses on mental health per se, but also focuses on leadership development of our elementary and secondary students in the Philippines. Currently, the PMHA has linkages with the Schools Division Office of Quezon City, Marikina, and Marikina City. These are the focus points of the association at the moment.
Okay, Jiggy. You are now working and at the same time studying. Will this not
Yes.
affect your, should you ever be appointed, will this not affect your performance in school and in work?
I believe, Your Honor, this will not affect my performance as I would be able to manage. I believe I will be able to manage my time more efficiently, especially the tasks that I will be doing are things which I uh, love to do and things which I am passionate about. And so I will be able to properly manage my time to be able to do these properly, Your Honor.
Okay. This as discuss your long-term and short-term plans for the legal education, if ever appointed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Cite at least three plans.
My first plan, Your Honor, if appointed as law student representative to the Legal Education Board, is to be able to strengthen the mechanism of listening to the law students, to be able to reach out to our law students. I envision that this can be done by um, through given the limitations of the pandemic through online means by being able to set up kumustahan sessions with our law students. Um, I believe this can be done in coordination with the Association of Law Students of the Philippines, which is the Law Student Association that we have. They have an established network throughout the Philippines, and we could support them in coordinating with the law schools to be able to hear what our individual law schools, through their consultations with the students, are. My second goal as student representative to the board is to be able to bring up these concerns and be able to properly air the concerns of our law students to the board so that in the development of policy pertaining to legal education, all sides can be properly heard and that we can work hand in hand to be able to develop a legal education that is not just uh, into developing future legal practitioners, but those that are responsive to the needs also of the law students who shall be our future legal practitioners. Finally,
What about amendments? Aside from your long-term and short-term programs or plans, what amendments would you propose to the Republic Act 7662?
perhaps an amendment which we could look into the Legal Reform Act would be um, as even though the law student sector is a mandated sector to the Legal Education Board, it does not concretely define up to what extent the student representative can act in relation to policy development. Um, the Legal Reform Act spoke of the long-term and short-term goals of legal education, but in relation to responding to the needs of law students and how this can be concretely done, there is not much mention of it in the law. And so this could be an amendment wherein we can um, institutionalize recognition of the law student sector and that it is an integral part of legal education and that our to concretize what the law students can do to be able to further add to legal education, Your Honor.
Okay. In a statement issued last week, CHED Chair J. Prospero de Vera said that the Commission is set to convene experts to define academic freedom as rights groups and lawmakers raised concerns of increased police and military operations in UP where you are now studying and other schools. Is this a valid action by the CHED, considering that the Supreme Court in various cases already discussed the concept and parameters of academic freedom?
I believe, Your
Begin.
Honor, this is not a valid concern of the Commission on Higher Education. Yes, Your Honor.
Did you get my
Yes, Your
question?
Honor.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe this is not an exercise that the Commission on Higher Education should be exercising, as you have mentioned. The Supreme Court has already defined and has given parameters on what academic freedom is and the extent of academic freedom is. For the Commission on Higher Education to convene legal experts to define what academic freedom is in a way like executive legislation on what it is when it is already in our laws defined by jurisprudence on what academic freedom is. And I believe these parameters which the Supreme Court have given are already clear in itself and do not need further explanation to understand what academic freedom is in relation to educational institutions, Your Honor.
Okay, what then is meant by academic freedom?
Academic freedom is the freedom to choose what to teach, who can teach them, who is admitted to our schools, and it's a protection afforded to educational institutions to be able to speak freely and to be able to teach what they believe should be taught by what they believe their students should be taught. Um, but of course, this is in relation to what is legal and what can be taught to students, Your Honor.
What are its parameters? You spoke of parameters earlier.
Um, the four which I have enumerated, Your Honor, basically encapsulates what academic freedom is, which is the right to determine what is taught in the educational institution, the right to determine how the content is taught to the students, the right to choose who can teach this content to um, the students, and the right to determine which students are admitted to the educational institution, Your Honor.
Okay. Amid criticism that limits military and police access to UP, a lawmaker filed a bill to declare which sets all state universities and campuses as freedom spaces where academic freedom is guaranteed. Is this constitutional? Why or why not?
I believe this is constitutional, Your Honor, because academic freedom is already afforded in the Constitution. It is enshrined in the Constitution, the educational institutions shall be guaranteed academic freedom, and to enact a law declaring our state universities and colleges as was that freedom institutions, Your Honor? Um, to enact a law to further declare that is to further strengthen this constitutional guarantee provided on academic freedom.
Can you cite to us the two main views when it comes to academic freedom? Two main
Sorry, Your Honor.
views. What are the two main views? Views,
Ah,
VIEWS.
yes, Your Honor. I believe the two main views in relation to academic freedom is that academic freedom should be absolute, meaning that it should not be infringed at any cost, and it is
Mhm.
a freedom afforded to our educational institutions that they be able to express themselves and be able to um, properly teach the students what they believe should be taught to our students. And then there is this view that academic freedom may be restricted if there is a um, need to restrict such freedom, Your Honor.
The views that I am asking or I'm
Hmm.
referring to is the are the views from the standpoint of the educational institution, one, and from the standpoint of the members of the academe. From the standpoint of the educational institution, what does it espouse?
From the standpoint of the educational institution, academic freedom is the freedom to be able to determine which students they may admit and what courses that they may teach to their students. From the standpoint of the academe, this would be the standpoint that academic freedom affords them the right to teach the course according to how they see it fit to be taught, Your Honor.
That being said, what does the Supreme Court expound in the case of Miriam College Foundation versus Court of Appeals, GR 127930 of November 15, 2000? What was the ruling enunciated by the Supreme Court in that case?
Your Honor, I'll admit I have not read this case regarding academic freedom, Your Honor.
Okay. For your benefit, the Supreme Court held that if the school has the freedom to determine whom to admit, logic dictates that it also has the right to determine whom to exclude or expel, as well as to impose lesser sanctions such as suspension.
Yes, sir.
Okay, my last question would be, what is academic freedom from the standpoint of the members of the academy?
Sorry, Your Honor.
What is academic freedom from the standpoint of the
Of the
members
acad-
of the academy?
yes, Your Honor. Academic freedom from the standpoint of the members of the academe is to how they determine on how they shall um, deliver the content or the material which they shall be teaching, and to determine who is qualified to teach these content, Your Honor. It is the freedom
Anyway,
to determine how to teach and who can teach them, Your Honor.
you read further for your benefit. Frank Lovejoy,
Yes, Your Honor.
Encyclopedia of Social Science, page 384.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you read that. Okay, that was my last question, Jiggy. Thank you for your time and good luck.
Thank
Thank
you,
you very
Judge.
much, Your Honor.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Edith.
Judge.
Uh,
Yes, thank you, Judge de Monteverde. The next to interview Mr. Jacinto is the Honorable Justice Noel Jimenez Pina.
Thank you. Good afternoon,
Mr. Jacinto.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Uh, is your grandfather Generoso Jacinto, the law professor?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
And when did he pass away?
I believe, Your Honor, he passed away in 1973 or 1974, Your Honor.
Were you were not born yet?
Not yet, Your Honor. I have gone to uh, know him through his students, Your Honor.
Yeah, he was our professor in law school teaching criminal procedure, remedial law, evidence also.
Oh,
All right. Now, you have read the case of Pimentel versus Legal Education Board.
yes, Your Honor.
Uh, in your opinion, can the Legal Education Board be placed under the supervision of the Supreme Court pursuant to that decision in that case?
I still believe, Your Honor, that the Legal Education Board should not be placed under the supervision of the Supreme Court. The Legal Education Board is an executive office, which is which is separate and distinct from the mandate of the Supreme Court on who is to be admitted to the practice of law, Your Honor. The
The,
scope of the Legal Education Board is the administration of legal education, Your Honor.
that is the ruling in the Pimentel versus Legal Education Board, which is not yet final because there are pending motions for reconsideration. But in your opinion, is education a constitutional right of every citizen?
I believe, Your Honor, yes, this is a constitutional right of every citizen because a citizen should be able to um, learn and to be able to hold himself out to the world with the education that he has attained, Your Honor.
All right. The Constitution says that the Supreme Court has the rule-making power to promulgate rules pertaining to pleadings, practice, procedure, and protection of constitutional rights.
Yes, Your Honor.
So, in your opinion, under the Constitution, is there a restriction? Is there a prohibition for the Supreme Court to promulgate rules governing legal education, which is a constitutional right?
The Supreme Court, Your Honor, may promulgate rules, but as to the supervision of legal institutions, I believe that would be uh, in terms of the scope of the Legal Education Board as it is. I believe that would be the Supreme Court cannot go into the um, business of the Legal Education Board of defining uh, who can earn the degrees, the educational degrees, which um, the legal, the educational institutions offering law um, confer on their graduates, Your Honor.
The Philippine Judicial Academy is created by law, by an act of Congress,
Yes.
and yet it is placed under the supervision of the Supreme Court. Cannot the Legal Education Board, which is created by an act of Congress, be placed as well under the supervision of the Supreme Court.
Then perhaps, Your Honor, the Legal Education Board may be placed under the supervision of the Supreme Court. What bothers me with this concept, Your Honor, is that the Legal Education Board has delegated authority of the being exercised by the Commission on Higher Education now, Your Honor. And it is something that is hard for me to reconcile on how the judicial branch shall be exercising executive functions, Your Honor, if it shall be supervising the Legal Education Board.
Promulgation of rules, is that an executive function if it is done by the Supreme Court?
Sorry, Your Honor. Can
The
you please repeat that last
promulgation of
question?
rules, the promulgation of rules, is that an executive function?
Of the Supreme Court, no, Your Honor.
It's not an executive. All right. Now let me
No,
go to
no.
another topic. Academic freedom. We always ask this question to applicants to the Legal Education Board. Can you give me, in your opinion, what is allowed, what can be done in the exercise of academic freedom? What can be
I
done by schools? What can be done by professors? And what can be done by students in the exercise of academic freedom? Just some specific examples, in your opinion.
in my opinion, Your Honor, in the exercise of academic freedom, an educational institution may determine what content or what course it may teach to its students. A concrete example of this, Your Honor, is that in the Ateneo de Manila University, where I had my undergraduate degree, um, other than the prescribed undergraduate general education curricula prescribed by the Commission on Higher Education, our school also included theology and philosophy courses as required courses to be learned by its students, believing that theology and philosophy are essential subjects to better form its students into the kind of leaders that they aim to produce from their graduates. So I believe this is an
Can I,
exercise
can
of
I, can I
academic.
interrupt for a while?
Yes,
Can
Your
the
Honor.
Ateneo de Manila, which is a Catholic school, is it a Catholic school?
Um, yes, Your Honor, to a certain degree.
To a certain degree.
Yes, Your Honor.
Can the University of Santo Tomas, which is a Catholic university, School of Law, adopt a policy that they will only hire law professors who are Catholics? Can they do that?
I believe, Your Honor, in their exercise of academic freedom, yes, because they can determine who shall teach the subjects which they offer, Your Honor.
And in the same way, the New Era University in Quezon City, which is owned, I believe, by the Iglesia Ni Cristo, can also adopt a similar policy that only law professors who belong to the Iglesia Ni Cristo can teach. They can do that.
I believe so, Your Honor. They could.
All right. Now, you talk of academic freedom by an institution. What about an example of a law professor? What is he allowed to do in the exercise of academic freedom?
I believe the law professor, Your Honor, in his exercise of academic freedom, can determine how he shall deliver this content to the students. Um, he can employ different means as long as he follows within the prescribed um, course syllabus, which is determined by the school, he can determine how he wishes to deliver this content. It could be delivered. This is particularly seen now during the pandemic, wherein we are conducting online classes, wherein there could be a situation wherein our law professor decides that there is no need to meet us at all, and he simply provides his course packets, which he believes is sufficient to impart the knowledge needed for the law subject. While on the other hand, other law professors believe that it is still necessary to conduct online classes and to interact with their students. Um, a law professor may also include in his course content additional matters to be discussed, which is not to be discussed by other law professors, Your Honor.
Can a law professor, instead of going to law school, to the classroom, instead of conducting online classes personally, delegate that to his assistant and let the assistant
No, Your Honor. I believe he
conduct
could not.
recitation or give quizzes? Is that not an
I
exercise of
believe.
academic freedom?
Um, I believe, Your Honor, this shall no longer be an exercise of academic freedom, as um, one of the guarantees of academic freedom is the determination of who is to teach the content. And in this situation, if the law professor delegates this authority, then it is no longer. It was the law professor that was hired by the law school to teach the content, and it was not the assistant of the law professor, Your Honor.
But isn't it that the law professor has the freedom how he will adapt to educate the students?
Yes, Your Honor, he may have this freedom, but then there is also the quality and the determination on it has been determined that it is the law professor who is capable of delivering this content, and it was not a determination that the law professor has assistants or deputies who can deliver the content. And I believe um, to say that delegating this authority to the assistants is an exercise of academic freedom, if done on a regular basis, is an overreach of academic freedom, Your Honor.
So you're saying there's a limit to academic freedom? If you're not happy, then you can curtail academic freedom. That's what you're saying.
Um, Not exactly, Your Honor. What I'm saying is that academic freedom is exercised hand in hand with what has been um, predetermined as the norms of education, Your Honor,
So you are free
in my opinion.
academically, but you have to follow a norm. That is what you're saying.
To a certain extent, Your Honor, yes, that is what I'm saying.
In the event that there is a conflict between the exercise of academic freedom by a professor and the exercise of academic freedom by a student, which academic freedom will prevail?
I believe, Your Honor, this determination is it should be determined which freedom of the professor or the student has been violated, or which overlap, to be able to further determine whose academic freedom should prevail in this situation, Your Honor.
You did not answer my question. You mean to say you have to go to court and let the court decide which academic freedom is more paramount? That is what you're suggesting.
Um, Your Honor, how do you say this? N- There is
There,
a need to
there are
determine.
no right and wrong answers. I'm just
Yes, Your Honor.
interested in how you think.
I believe, Your Honor, there is a need to determine which academic freedom must prevail in this situation, Your Honor. Because the academic freedoms exercised by the student and the professor are um, at certain situations not exactly the same
Sure. So
freedom.
there could be conflicts. There
Yes,
could be
there could be
conflict.
conflict.
All right. Let me go to another topic. Give me an example of academic freedom by a student.
Uh, I believe, Your Honor, an academic freedom exercised by a student would be his freedom of expression to express his views on the subject matter, um, to be able to um, discuss and to engage in discourse with his professor, Your Honor, and to be able to further the topic which is being discussed by the subject matter, Your Honor.
Can students exercise academic freedom outside of the school?
I believe, Your Honor, yes, the student can exercise his academic freedom outside the school in the exercise of his function as a student if he relates his views or his opinions as a student, Your Honor.
Outside of the school premises? He goes to Plaza Miranda and makes a speech as a student of Ateneo de Manila. Will that be in the exercise of academic freedom? In your opinion?
Um, Sorry, I retract my previous answer, Your Honor. In my opinion, what is being exercised here now is freedom of expression and not entirely academic freedom, Your Honor. I believe academic freedom is exercised within the confines of the educational institution insofar as education is concerned or is delivered, Your Honor.
Do students have the academic freedom to demand refund of tuition fees because they were not given quality education by incompetent professors?
I believe, Your Honor, uh, what is um, that is not what is contemplated by academic freedom because then that would be to question on who determines what is quality education, Your Honor. And this
Who
is
determines?
determined.
So who
Sorry.
determines quality education? The professor?
Um, I believe this is determined by the educational institution in determining what kind of education it shall be providing by setting the requirements on what is to be taught and how and by choosing the professors whom they believe will be able to deliver this education to their students, Your Honor.
When students graduate, they take the bar exams and all of them failed. My question is, were they given quality education if they failed?
I believe, Your Honor, it is still possible that they have been given quality education, as I believe that the bar exams is a determination of the capacity of the law student to have been able to grasp the legal concepts that have been taught to him, Your Honor.
So you're saying the bar examination is solely a gauge of the competency of the law students and not the competency of the law professors, not the competency of the law school. Is that what you're saying?
Um, no, Your Honor, because of course, it all works hand in hand. How the law school has determined what to teach and how the professor has determined how to teach it and how the student understood what was taught. But to say that a batch which did not pass the bar examinations entirely and to say that the institution did not deliver quality education. Um, the law school a is a factor in determining the success of the um law student, but it is not the end all be all of the law student passing the bar because it also requires the attitude and the effort of the law student in be able to succeed in this endeavor, Your Honor.
My last question is, you are a law student. Can you tell the Judicial and Bar Council honestly, what is your expectation? What is important to you as a law student before you graduate? That is my last question.
For me, Your Honor, what is important to me as a law student is not just that I understand the law and not just that I be able to uh, not just that I be able to receive the requisite knowledge I need to pass the bar, but for me to be able to understand the law and how it operates in our current context so that I will be able to be a more efficient and more prudent legal practitioner, Your Honor, in the future.
All right. Thank you very much. Regards to your family and to the memory of your grandfather, your great
Thank you
grandfather,
very much, Your Honor.
and good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Piham. The next to interview Mr. Jacinto is the Honorable Judge Toribio E. Ilaw Jr.
Yes, thank you, Attorney Edith. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Jacinto. Your
Good
complete,
afternoon, Your Honor.
your complete name is Generoso Ignacio Salvador Jacinto.
Yes, Your Honor.
Your mother's surname is Salvador. Any relation to the retired RTC Judge Tranquil Salvador?
No, Your Honor. My grandfather is the retired RTC judge Ignacio Salvador, Your Honor, of Quezon City.
Your your father?
My
Sorry?
grand my grandfather, Your Honor, was a retired RTC judge of Quezon City, Your Honor. But it was not the Honorable Tranquil Salvador, Your Honor. It was Ignacio Salvador.
Okay. You're presently a legal researcher and controller of a Generoso R. Jacinto Jr. law firm for 10 years.
Um, yes, Your Honor. When I was answering the personal data sheet, I included the years, Your Honor, when I would be doing menial tasks for my father, as I believe this was work experience in his law firm, as it was tasks. Say, um, these tasks throughout the years was also what developed my interest in the legal profession, which encouraged me to enter law school, Your Honor.
So you have worked with such law firms since you were 14 years old. Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who do you look like? Your father or your grandfather?
Uh, I am. I want to believe, Your Honor, I look like my father because I did not see my grandfather, Your Honor.
Okay. But how come when asked for your office address and phone number, you answered NA, not available in the PDS? Why?
Ah, it was a confusion on my part, Your Honor, as to how to regard this. You see, Your Honor, I consider myself with the law firm as a part timer because I am a full time regular student, and the tasks which I work with for the law firm are those which are given to me by my father to do certain research tasks, Your Honor. I was growing up. I was taken. I understood as an office address as something which you provide when it is a full time engagement with an office, Your Honor.
Tell me about Generoso Jacinto Jr. Law Firm.
Yes, Your Honor.
Tell me about that law
Ah,
firm. How
it's a
many
law firm.
lawyers are there?
It is a law firm in Caloocan City. Currently, it's only my father as running
Mm.
the firm at the moment. Um, the portfolio of the law firm consists of various clients, mostly small businesses or franchise owners, Your Honor. And they come to the law firm for legal consultations on the pertaining to their day-to-day operations, Your Honor.
And what kind of cases do your father handle?
Um, most labor cases, Your Honor.
Labor cases. And the place of the law office of your father is the ancestral house of your grandfather. But, from the very beginning, your grandfather is from Caloocan.
Yes, Your Honor. This is where my grandfather's office used to be, Your Honor. They have erected a building on the original office, Your Honor.
Okay. How is the work culture?
I believe in my experience, Your Honor, work culture is good. It is a very engaging environment. It's a good learning experience, especially when work was actually engaged in the office because now during the pandemic we limit interactions. You get to engage with the clients. You get to interact with them. Um, you get to go to courts. You see how the court processes work, and it is a very nurturing learning experience, especially for me as one who sees himself in the future as a legal practitioner myself, Your Honor. It is something which a law school um, cannot fully impart on the student as our legal aid clinic comes in the later years in our fourth year. So it's something that is abruptly given an opportunity given to us in law school, Your Honor.
The records show that you are likewise a lifetime member and volunteer, Philippine Mental Health Association. How important is one's mental health?
Your Honor, mental health is very important to a person as with a sound mental health, you have a full grasp of your faculties and you are able to soundly um, think and determine and engage and interact with others. And it is an often overlooked part of the human person, especially as there's a stigma when talking about mental health, which is slowly being dissolved through the community education. So yes, mental health is indeed very important to us in the way we think and the way we act, Your Honor.
What again is your nickname, Mr. Jacinto?
Jiggy, Your Honor.
GD.
Jiggy.
Ah,
Jiggy.
okay, sige pa. Okay. Are you medically fit? You seems to
Um,
have, what is your weight?
the last time I checked, Your Honor, my weight was 98 kilograms, Your Honor.
98 kilograms.
So this is roughly around 100 something pounds, Your Honor.
Only 100 pounds more, 200, 180, 175 pounds.
Or thereabouts, Your Honor.
About your height,
Um, 5'5", Your Honor.
5'5". Okay. Alright, describe your leadership skills.
I believe, Your Honor, my leadership skills are excellent. As I believe, as a leader, it's not just about uh, leading per se, or to teach, to show those who you're leading what to do, but it is a engagement with the people that you lead, listening to them, involving them in the thought process, and the leader is the leader takes into consideration what his other team members believe is important and what should be done before deciding on which path to take. And a leader should, and I believe that as a leader, I do this. I take into consideration what those I am those who I lead believe should be taken before deciding what to do, Your Honor.
Alright, can you cite a specific instance when you have inspired or moved your fellow law students to do and be better in terms of academics or social responsibility?
Hmm. I believe, Your
Any
Honor.
instance?
I believe, Your Honor, I would say I inspire my fellow law students to um, strive for academic excellence in a way. During our long breaks in law school, instead of being one of those law students going out to take their breaks elsewhere, I usually spend my time in the library until eventually, throughout the semester, our study group grew and grew, and it became an avenue for us to discuss our lessons outside the classroom and to be able to learn from each other and to understand from each other and see our which study habits are effective for us, Your Honor.
How about in social responsibility or social aspect of it?
And social responsibility, Your Honor. As stated in my PDS, I used to be a consultant in Ateneo, and this consultancy was as a student formator of the scouting organization in Ateneo. Um, so our scouts also have their own community service projects, and I believe my fellow law students saw these projects which are being developed by my students, and have they also took part by engaging and providing support for these projects, Your Honor.
What made you an interest in Boy Scouts of the Philippines? This Caloocan City chapter, Boy Scout.
I actually began, Your Honor, in the Quezon City Council because that's where Ateneo is situated. Um, I believe the scouting movement has been influential on my um, desire to be of service to others, as it is through this movement wherein I learned that I have the ability to actually lead and to serve. It's here where I develop what I believe are my strengths as a leader, which I stated as one who listens to the needs of those who he leads and represents, and to be able to represent them to policy-making bodies. And so this is what encouraged me to be more engaged in youth participation. And so when I transferred to the Caloocan City Council, this is when we reestablished the local council there, Your Honor. And I believe um, this is what made most interested in youth participation, is because through the scouting movement, I saw that um, there is a need to include the youth in policy making. There is a need to listen to the needs of those being represented, and that everybody has the capacity to lead and to represent, Your Honor.
You would like to follow the footstep of then Jojo Binay,
Uh,
always
not
Boy Scout.
not exactly, Your Honor. I believe I am not interested at the moment to be a career politician, Your Honor.
What are the specific objectives of legal education?
Sorry,
And
Your Honor.
specific objectives of legal education.
Um, some specific objectives of legal education in the Philippines is first to give a broad knowledge of the law and the different fields of practice in law, to be able to develop future legal practitioners who are socially aware of the situations and how the law is to be applied, and to be able to develop legal practitioners who shall also be leaders in their fields, Your Honor.
First and foremost, to impart among law students a broad knowledge of law, and it concerns about law students. And how will you attain these objectives given that you have no experience yet about the practice of law?
Um, Your Honor, I believe as student representative to the Legal Education Board, as I still do not have experience in the practice of law, uh, as the representative, I will be able to voice out with the board so that policies can be developed to further provide opportunities for legal internships and legal clinics, which law students may participate in, to be able to experience the practice of law to a certain degree, Your Honor, before graduating and before taking the bar exams and before being legal practitioners, Your Honor.
By the way, basically, what do you know about the practice of law?
I believe, Your Honor, the practice of law is not as what many believe to be the main focus, which is litigation. Practice of law is also into we also into legal education, where we have law professors. This is a practice of law. Uh, we also have legal practitioners who are into the devising of contracts for their clients. The practice of family law also, Your Honor. These are the different fields of the practice of law which a legal practitioner may enter into, Your Honor.
And how have you enhanced your legal research abilities? An important skill in the practice of law to be able to lead and help others enhance their legal research abilities.
Yes, Your Honor. I believe what I have learned as a legal researcher is that there's a um, vast uh, we have many resources wherein we can go into when going into legal research. It's not just limited to our jurisprudence or to SCRA. We have also other sources wherein we can look into, like LexisNexis and the other online legal resources, which we can look into, Your Honor.
And how will you help prepare your fellow law students for advocacy, counseling, problem solving, and decision making?
Um, yes, Your Honor. I believe I will be able to help my fellow law students into this by advocating to the board to provide for opportunities for our law students to be able to engage and with the community and to be able to provide services and to immerse themselves into the practice of law so that they may see these realities of the practice, Your Honor.
And what do you think you could contribute to the Legal Education Board if and when you're appointed?
I believe, Your Honor, my contribution to the board, if appointed, would be my ability to be able to engage with the law students and to be able to hear their concerns and to be able to voice them out. Um, to be honest, Your Honor, in previous years, um, what I have heard from my fellow law students is that um, we rarely hear from the Legal Education Board other than the PhilSat prior to its suspension. Other than that, it is very difficult for law students to be able to understand the reasons behind the policies of the board. And I believe as a representative of the student sectors, it's something which we can change to be able to show to my fellow law students that the Legal Education Board is not just there for policy making, but that it is ready, able, and willing to engage the law students because legal education without law students is not entirely complete because it is the law students which are being educated who will be the next legal practitioners. And it is something noteworthy now that the Legal Education Board is advocating for the Magna Carta for law students' rights. The Legal Education Board will be conducting consultations on January 28th with law students about this. And I believe my fellow law students appreciate this act of the Legal Education Board because there are certain things which law students are not able to express to authorities as to how we are dealing with legal education at the moment. And we believe this Magna Carta, which they're advocating, will be of great help to us law students, Your Honor.
Let's take. And by the way, what are the duties and responsibilities of students?
I believe, first and foremost, the duty of the law student is to study the law, to be able to understand what is taught to him by his professor, not just what has been taught to him by the professor, but to understand the word of the law and how the Supreme Court has interpreted the law and how it is applied. So this is a responsibility of the law student. As we could see, what we see with the law may not be entirely how it is applied by our courts. And it is now the responsibility of the student to understand how this is applied by um, the courts, Your Honor.
What are the current issues in your school that you think that legal education board could address? Do you belong to a frat in UP?
No, Your Honor, I do not belong to a frat because I am a member of our student tribunal, Your Honor. I believe the Legal Education Board would be able to help our school in developing policies on how subjects are allocated to students, Your Honor. There are times when probably it's a management uh, issue or it is something which policies can be prescribed on where to allocate subjects. Our curriculum right now is not the same as the standard curriculum, although they have the required subjects. The where the subjects are put and the units are put are not the same as that prescribed by the LEB. Perhaps we could look into why these policies were prescribed by the Legal Education Board. Maybe it has something to do with the availability of law professors to provide subjects for at certain semesters, Your Honor.
What are your thoughts on online learning?
I believe, Your Honor, online learning is definitely difficult for the law student. Um, Online learning, on my personal experience, it is not the same as engaging in the classroom. Wherein in the classroom, it would be easier to accept a cinco for a recitation you believe you really were not able to perform well compared to a cinco because you got disconnected from your classes. At the same time, just as our professor mentioned last semester, it is difficult for the professor to gauge from the reactions of the students whether or not they actually understood what was being taught to the students. Um, that is a difficulty of online education. But then we must adapt to the situation at hand because online education seems to be a reality for the next couple of semesters until we find a solution to this pandemic, Your Honor. And it is the responsibility of the student to adapt to this situation so that he be able to learn from it, Your Honor.
And what are the important realizations in this pandemic?
Well, one important
It will take
realization,
about a year.
sorry, please continue, Your
Yes,
Honor.
please.
Uh, for me, Your Honor, one
All right,
important
your answer, please.
realization that I have gained is that life cannot stop just because the pandemic has hit us. Um, Despite the difficulties of online education, most of us law students had to persevere and to conquer these difficulties because at the end of it all, you come to this realization that your end goal is to be a lawyer and you would want to learn and you do your best. You do your best to adapt to the situation. You don't have the same resources available at the moment because we do not have access to our libraries. But as I mentioned, we have other legal resources available online. And it is this realization that the world can't stop because of a roadblock and that we should do our best to make do with the situation and to adapt to it the best that we can, Your Honor.
What in the realization of your thoughts on the proposed amendment of Republic Act number 7662, which seeks to remove law students from the representation in the Legal Education Board?
Um, I oppose this amendment, Your Honor, because I believe law students as a sector should be heard in the policy making of the Legal Education Board, Your Honor. As I mentioned earlier, legal education involves a multiplicity of sectors, and the law students are an integral part of the legal education system, Your Honor. And I believe that law students must be heard in policy making, Your Honor.
And what is that is so fragile that you can break it just by saying its name? My last question.
Hmm. I would say, Your Honor, ego. Just by calling out the ego
Ego?
of a person, you could break it. Yes. Um, you call out a person, and the person may shatter if he may not agree with you or he does not like what has been said to him, Your Honor. And so it is, I believe, so fragile to call it out will break it, Your Honor.
Or is it silence?
Not silence, Your Honor, but more on um, direct
You still maintain
communication.
ego.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. That was my last and final question. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Your
Generoso,
Honor.
but you don't look like your father. Maybe you look like your, so sorry, you don't look like your grandfather. Maybe you look like
Okay.
your father. You, okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Good
Judge
luck.
Ilaw.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Your Honor.
Judge Ilaw.
Yes,
The
I'm
next
done, Edith.
Yes po. The next to interview Mr. Jacinto is our Honorable Justice Jose Cachao Mendoza.
Thank you, Tony Edit, Generoso Jacinto.
Hello?
Hello?
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Where are you now? In UP or in the law office of your father?
I am at home, Your Honor,
You're
so
at
that I
home.
have stable internet, Your Honor.
I see. Oh. Your father uh, is a solo practitioner,
Yes, Your Honor.
especially specializing in labor.
Labor, Your Honor, and corporate law, Your Honor.
I see. Does he teach?
Um, he stopped teaching, Your Honor, when he had a stroke a couple of years back, Your Honor. But he used to teach too.
What did he teach?
He used to teach remedial law subjects, Your Honor.
Oh, special proceeding.
Yes, Your Honor.
Did he continue his father's? Uh, uh, did he improve on the book of his father, his
He is
grandfather?
that is what he has been developing, Your Honor, through his
Ano nga yun?
leave of absence. He has been aiming to improve on them, especially with the new amendments, Your Honor, to the rules of court.
I see. I have the. You read the case of Pimentel versus Leb. Have you read the whole decision?
I have read through it, Your Honor.
And also the separate opinions
No, Your
written
Honor.
by the other justices.
No, Your Honor.
Your grandfather is Judge Ignacio Salvador.
Yes, Your Honor.
Was he the classmate of Enrile, class 53?
I believe so,
UP?
Your Honor. I believe they were batchmates, Your Honor.
I see. So, your mother was born in Lawag.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then your father entered into a second marriage?
No, Your Honor.
No? Your grandfather?
My grandfather, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
Yes. Oh, I see. Was he not a judge in Quezon City? Quezon
Um,
City. Your
Ignacio Salvador,
grandfather,
Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor.
Gran-
Ignacio Salvador. Yes, Your Honor.
Ignacio Salvador. Did he not marry again?
No, Your Honor.
No second wife.
No, Your Honor.
I see. Well, you were not able to read the separate opinion. I've asked you about the separate opinion written by Justice Leonen. You were not able to read it.
No, Your Honor. I apologize for
How
that, Your Honor.
about and also Justice Hesmundo?
No, Your Honor. I
Uh,
was able to read the main decision only,
just
Your
the
Honor.
main decision. Do you know that
Yes.
decision promulgated in September 2019 is not yet final?
Yes, Your Honor. I believe there are pending motions for reconsideration to this,
For
Your Honor.
reconsiderations. there were, in that case, two provisions of the law of, was upheld. Four were declared unconstitutional, and the other four were declared unconstitutional for ultra vires. Okay, the decision is not yet final. Do you agree with that decision? Just your opinion.
I believe, Your Honor, that the Legal Education Board is not determining who is entering the practice of law by prescribing the PhilStat. Um, what the PhilStat aims to do is to gauge the capacity of the student to enter law school, and that just as the Legal Education Board has been given the authority to prescribe the basic curriculum for the Juris Doctor degree, and that they have been given the authority to prescribe the minimum qualifications and compensations for law professors. I believe the Legal Education Board should be able to prescribe the minimum qualifications through the administration of the PhilSat as something that is to be used hand in hand with the determination of the individual law schools into the admission of their law students, Your Honor.
So you disagree
I
with the decision. Anyway, it's not yet final. You disagree.
yes, sir.
What else? On what else?
This is mainly where I disagree in, Your Honor, because I believe, as I said, there is a need to the aim of the PhilSat is not a um, the PhilSat is a standardized examination. Uh, it's a standardized examination provided uh, to aspiring law students, but it is not entirely the basis for the admission into law schools, as law schools also have their own individual examinations to determine who is qualified to enter their law schools. Um, I, I, I believe the PhilStat should be taken as something similar to what the medical profession also uses in the admission of their students, the NMAT,
Math. You're
as
referring to
the
the NMAT,
yes, Your Honor.
but there
Um,
was an NMAT was declared constitutional. There were differences between the NMAT and the PhilSat. What were
yes, Your
those
Honor.
differences?
Oh, well, the main difference, I believe, Your
There
Honor,
were
is that
three.
um, the NMAT is a determination of the knowledge of the basic skills needed to enter medical schools, for
Yes,
us the
yes, we know
PhilStat.
that. No, no, no. We just focus on the constitutionality. We know NMAT is for medical students or those applying as medical students, and PhilSat are for those who want to enter law school. Now, on the limit yourself on the constitutionality. What are the difference between the two? Because NMAT was declared constitutional
Yes, Your Honor.
and PhilSat was not. There were three grounds mentioned in the decision in Pimentel. What are those three reasons?
Well, one reason, Your Honor, is that it was the opinion of the court that the PhilSat was um, uh, an overreach, as it was already on the point of um, it was already going through the students and was determining on whether who could enter the law schools at the level of the PhilSat, and it was already infringing upon the um, right of the Supreme Court to determine who is to be admitted to the practice of law, Your Honor. I believe this is the main reason why the PhilSat was deemed as unconstitutional. It was this fact that through the PhilSat, it was already roadblocking potential students into entering law schools, and in effect was already determining who may or may not, in effect, take the bar and practice law, Your Honor.
What were the other two reasons? Other two. Do you remember?
I'm trying to recall, Your Honor, but it escapes me at the moment as this was the main import I got from the decision, Your Honor. Uh,
But the essential difference is that PhilSat seeks to control the admission in the law schools, correct?
yes, Your Honor.
And NMAP was not designed, or the those administering the NMAP. Uh, well, with respect to the NMAP, the medical schools had the final say who to admit, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Uh, Now you said you mentioned about student concerns legal education. What were they? Are they? What are their concerns?
I believe, Your Honor, some concerns law students have regarding legal education right now is pertaining to how um, pertaining to the opportunities of law students to um, enter into legal internships and to engage in legal aid clinics. I believe this is very important, and it is one of the mandates of the Legal Education Board to be able to provide for opportunities and to um, provide opportunities for legal internships and clinical aid for law students, as not all
Is this not
law school.
covered by a memorandum of the LEB?
Yes, Your Honor, but it is not yet fully. It is difficult for law students to find legal internships at the moment. So perhaps we could air this concern with the board so that we could work hand in hand to be able to provide these opportunities to our law students.
What are their
Perhaps there,
expectations with respect to legal education?
as to expectations towards legal education, Your Honor, um, while we believed we trust in the sound discretion of the board in determining the um, required curricula for our basic degrees. Um, just as I mentioned earlier, we are now, the Legal Education Board is now advocating for the Magna Carta for law students' rights. And it is an opportunity for law students to be able to air also our concerns and what we believe um, we can do to work with our schools and professors to make uh, legal education more participative and more engaging, to in a way that the objectives of the board to provide our students with general knowledge of the law is actually achieved. The law students, we have different experiences from the different generations who have gone through law school, Your Honor. And
Okay. You mentioned about the Magna Carta of law students. Have you seen the
yes,
draft
Your
of that?
I have not seen the draft, Your Honor. I've been trying to look for it online, Your Honor, but I have not seen it. And I'm actually interested to see it so that I could participate in the consultations on the 28th, Your Honor.
Okay. What do you think should be contained in the Magna Carta of law students? What what do you think should be the essentials of law students?
Can you repeat your last question, Your Honor?
Yes, this.
I didn't catch the
Oh,
button.
you have not seen the draft.
Not yet, Your Honor.
Now, you were to craft the Magna Carta of law students. What what should what essential rights should be in there?
I
What
been
areas?
one right of a law student, which I believe should be included in the Magna Carta, is the um, engagement with the subjects taken, Your Honor. Um,
You
on
want
my
the students want to have a say on what subjects should be taught to them.
No, Your Honor, but the course load taken by the students, Your Honor. In my personal experience as a law student, I had a day with 5 subjects in one day. And for me, it was difficult to cope with that semester studying for the 5 different subjects because you could not go to class unprepared. And I believe it should be included in the Magna Carta to be able to space out the subjects that students take per semester on the, say, 6 days of the week that we go to school evenly, to provide for an opportunity for the student to be able to study and prepare adequately for his classes, Your Honor.
Can the legal education board regulate that to even through a Magna Carta of law students? Can they regulate that?
I
Because
believe through a law.
the schedule of professors depends upon their own schedules also. Maybe because
Yes,
that's
Your Honor.
why you are taking 5 subjects in a day. Oh, you want them spaced, but you have to factor in the schedule of the professors and the school itself. Now, can the lab impose this or regulate this on the school, public or private?
Yes, Your Honor. I understand that there are several factors to be taken into consideration um,
Oh,
in this, or what's being
but
asked.
can the lab impose this?
I believe in the interest of actually delivering quality education, then yes, the legal education board can impose this upon the school to ensure to be able to space out subjects given to the students, Your Honor.
Mm.
I
What
believe
else?
they could.
What other essential rights of students do you propose
Uh,
to be included?
Another right, Your Honor, would be on the manner of how examinations to determine how a student has learned the subject matter are conducted.
Can you
Uh,
explain that? Parang I heard you, but I could not understand your point.
okay, Your Honor. I would explain this as in previous semesters prior to the pandemic in our school, we have had departmental exams for subjects.
Yes.
And these departmental exams often are not exactly what have been taught to law students. Perhaps ju- just as there is a basic curriculum, prescribed curriculum provided for by the board to law schools on what
You meant
should
to
be
say in the
taught.
department examination, the subjects covered were not related at all to the subject. Questions were not at all
Not
related
exactly
to
not
the
related,
subject. Oh,
not exactly not related, Your Honor, but the uh, well, I believe this may have something to do with the academic freedom of the law professor, but not all matters have been discussed in
oh,
certain
well,
examinations.
sometimes
So what
the
I am
hours per semester are not sufficient. So the professor gives you a syllabus of matters to read. You have your main book, and then di ba, your professor suggests that you also read these books, these cases, di ba? Oo. So it's really
yes, yeah.
it's between the the school and the students. Okay. Can the lab intrude into that?
No, Your Honor, but what
Can
I
it
was
regulate?
trying to explain with this, what I was trying to explain with this right, which we would
Uh,
most likely ask for, is that while there is a prescribed subject, the extent of the subject on what is to be taught, if it could be determined also, because there are certain professors who believe that a certain aspect of that subject is not necessary to be taught, but in another class it was delved on intensively, and so when the examinations come, um, the student may not have necessarily learned it because it was not seen as necessary. Whereas if it could be determined that these topics should have this amount of hours focused into it, I believe that would be
can you
of
not
great help
say
to the
that it
classroom.
is how the student appreciated the instruction? It's a matter of perspective and appreciation, right? Because to the professor, it was it was important, but he chose to explain. He concentrated on other matters, but the student should have studied that. Oh, I know your point now. Oh,
Yes, yeah.
oh. Uh, Now, in the implemental versus lab, it was stated the state in the exercise of its reasonable supervision and regulation over education can only minimum regulations. In the light of the decision, what can be these minimum regulations?
Well, the minimum regulations which
Yes,
can be
what can you
implemented by
do?
them.
When you can do, it appears that under the law, the powers of the lab had been emasculated. So you can only impose according to Pimentel
Yes, yeah.
minimum regulations. What are those? What can you do?
Well, I believe, Your Honor, what the law actually provides for are minimum regulations, because the wordings of the law are, uh, if I'm not mistaken, to prescribe the minimum curricula. It is not an absolute um, it is not an absolute form of what is to be taught, but it is the legal education board prescribes the minimums which must be taught to the law students. Um,
No, I'm not
the
asking
regulation
what
also of the board.
minimum. Oh, I'm asking about the regulations. Okay, what can you regulate under this limitation, minimum regulation? What can you regulate? What can the LEB regulate?
Well,
Because
it can
it
regulate
cannot
your honor.
transgress the academic freedom of the school. So what can it do? What can it regulate? A minimum regulation was not fully explained there, but in your view, what is your understanding of minimum regulations? What can the LEB regulate?
Well, it can regulate your honor. It can regulate um,
Wala ng power. It became powerless.
essentially your honor. But um, I believe through minimum regulation, the LEB can still determine who can be conferred the basic law degrees based on the standards that they have set from the beginning, the prescribed minimum curriculum. I believe that is still something that can be regulated, Your Honor.
What else?
Um, it could still regulate based on the parameters that the board has set on who can operate as a law school based on, I believe it is based on the performance during bar examinations. I believe this is still a minimum
The bar
regulation.
examination. In the past, in the recent past, there were schools where the graduates did not pass the bar and for several years. Oh, what is the penalty? Can they cease operating?
I believe this is one of the penalties provided for that the board may rescind the authorization of the law school to operate as a law school, Your Honor.
Suppose the board, the school says, our students are just police officers, government employees wanting to know the law. They will not take the bar exam. They just want to be promoted as police officers. Oh, what can you say about that?
I believe this is one of the arguments of the former chairperson of the Legal Education Board, the Honorable Emerson
Aken,
Akende was during
Akende,
the
yes,
oral argument.
yes.
This was one of his arguments during the oral arguments then that um, not all law students who enter law schools actually have the end goal of taking the bar examinations, and that
Yes.
there are um, situations wherein the law student simply wants to be well versed with the law. And I believe this is the reason why there is a prescribed track, a non thesis track, which can be taken. But I believe this is something that has not been fully developed into the consciousness of law schools and law students, that there is an opportunity where you can determine whether or not you will take the bar, and there's actually a track you can take for this, Your Honor.
Have you you are now in second year?
Can you please repeat that, Your Honor?
You are now in your on your second year.
Third year, Your Honor.
You're now third year, so you have taken obligations and contract. What is
Yes, Your
the
Honor.
nature of a contract of a student and the school?
Oh, well, the school has an obligation to the student to teach it, and
Mm.
the student has the responsibility to um, persevere and do his best to learn what has been taught to him to the best of his abilities, Your Honor.
It is a simple, ordinary contract or what? what is really the nature.
I believe, Your Honor, in this contract, the obligation goes both ways. The school has an obligation to the student, and the student has an obligation to the school to perform well, Your Honor.
So it's not an ordinary contract.
Yes, Your Honor.
Uh, have you read Isabelo versus Perpetual Help College? Official? No,
The case title does not come to me, Your Honor.
you're not familiar
I
with
believe
it.
I have not.
Yes,
I'm not familiar with it.
it's not an ordinary contract, but it is a contract which is imbued with public interest.
Inter.
So,
Yes, Your Honor.
how about the enrollment of a student? Is it a to semester contract, or it recognizes the right of a student to be enrolled for entire period in order to complete his course? What can you say
I
about?
believe it is a semestral contract because the student has to adhere to the academic standards set by the school to be able to qualify for admission to the next semester or to be retained in the institution, Your Honor.
Oh, aside from academic deficiency, what is the general rule regarding student school contract?
Well, I believe, Your Honor, general rule here is that it is still the school which determines whom it shall admit to study, and so it is something
Oh,
which the student
there
is.
are, oh yes, but student in Isabelo has a right or expectation to be enrolled for the entire period to complete his course. Exception, of course, this was already covered by other decision, is where the student has academic deficiency or has violated school regulations on discipline. Mm.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mm. Some schools ask their students to rate their professors. Uh, have you been asked that in UP?
Yes, Your Honor. It is a prerequisite to enlistment for the next semester, Your Honor.
Yes. Oh. In Sambeda, where your grandfather taught, some students petitioned the dean that this professor be not allowed to teach because he does not know how to impart his knowledge to the students. Suppose he has a contract, and but the students uh, uh, out, so the dean uh, removes him. Or your father is specializing in labor law. Is there a violation of the labor law? Is there illegal dismissal?
I believe, Your Honor, for this to happen, there should be due process in um
Yes,
before
there is.
letting go the
Uh,
professor.
we will assume that there is due process.
Then I
There is
believe,
no
Your Honor,
procedural. There is no
yes.
procedural problem. Oh,
Then the law school, Your
anyway,
Honor, has the
you
authority
qualify.
to.
If you want, you qualify your answer, so it will not be difficult.
Yes, Your Honor. Uh, I believe, Your Honor, in this situation, the law school, assuming that they have done the procedural necessities, then they would have the authority to dismiss the law professor who is not um, living up to the standards as the law school determines who can
That is
teach the
good.
subject.
Yes,
And with
that is good if it is incorporated in the contract that the contract or his will be dependent upon the rating by students. Suppose it is not stated there in the contract. Can the professor complain of illegal dismissal? Or that is the specialization of your father?
I believe, I believe, Your Honor, the school still has this the authority because it's still its academic freedom to determine who teaches the subject. And if they have reasonable belief that the law professor is not able to adequately perform his duty to deliver the subject, then it is enough grounds for his dismissal, Your Honor.
About the security of tenure and his contract. Have you taken labor law?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. So what is security of contract?
Your Honor, what I'm trying finding difficult to
I
reconcile
mean
with
to
this
say wrong. I was wrong. Security of tenure.
security of tenure.
Yes,
What
yes.
I'm trying to reconcile, Your Honor, is
Uh,
labor law in relation to the academic freedom
that
afforded to the
that is why
educational
that's why
institution.
I'm asking you. I'm challenging your mind.
Yes, Your
I'm
Honor.
just asking your opinion
I
because
believe,
your father and grandfather were law professors.
yes, Your Honor.
Uh,
Um, Perhaps the best resolution to this situation, Your Honor, would be to assign the concerned professor to a non-academic position.
so that is your solution.
Um,
But he wants to teach.
he may want to teach, Your Honor, but if the law school has lost its confidence in his ability to teach, as the law school can determine who teaches the subject matter, then the best solution to honoring his contract and his security of tenure would be to first put him on a non-teaching position, Your
Can
Honor.
you argue that the contract is unconstitutional because it infringes upon the academic freedom of the school?
That would be a possible argument, Your Honor, although
Although,
the contracting parties may have agreed
oh, so
to it.
the school is in estoppel.
Yes, that may be an argument, Your Honor.
Oh,
But
so if you're estoppel, you cannot argue that it is unconstitutional, violative of your academic freedom.
then, Your Honor,
Mm.
as we have established earlier on, education is imbued with public interest, and I believe this is
The
paramount in this
contract, not the
situation, Your Honor.
education. Contract, the contract between a
Yes,
student
Your
and a
Honor.
school
Um,
that
so
was being imbued with public
so
interest. So,
yes, Your Honor, and so the um, educational institution has to recognize this public interest and must do its best to ensure that it be able to ably provide the education that the student should receive through competent professors, Your Honor.
because of the rating by the students, they will terminate its services.
Yes, Your Honor.
And even if it is not provided in the contract.
I believe so, Your Honor, because this is still the prerogative of I believe this is still the prerogative of the school, Your Honor.
How about the contractual rights of the professor to compensation? to teach.
That is why, Your Honor, my resolution was to put him on a non-academic position. But
That is your solution.
yes, because I recognize,
But
Your
he
Honor,
said he
the
wants to
point
teach.
you're. Yes, I
Oh,
recognize the point
anyway,
that you're
anyway,
deriving at,
I'm
Your
just
Honor. But
asking you, no, I'm just challenging your
yes,
mind. Oh, thank you
yes,
very
Your
much,
Honor.
Mr. Jacinto. Oh,
Thank you, Your
regards to
Honor.
your father, if he still remembers me, us, we were
Yes, Your
his,
Honor.
oh, we were your grandfather's students, and he was carrying the blue book, your father. Sige. Your excuse,
I'm glad to
Mr. Jacinto.
hear that, Your Honor.
Oh, and even your
Thank you, Your Honor.
grandfather, Judge Salvador, we were together in Quezon City. Sige, thank you very much.
Ah,
Okay,
thank you very much, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice
you're
Mendoza. Thank you, Mr. Jacinto. That wraps up your interview, and good luck on your application. Uh,
uh, andyan na.
okay, the next to be interviewed by the JBC members is Mr. Christian Damiel Jamiero. And the first to interview Mr. Jamier is the Honorable Judge Franklin J. de Monteverde.
Good afternoon,
Thank you,
Your
Ajit.
Honor.
Okay, good afternoon, Christian.
Good afternoon, sir.
How do you pronounce your family name? Jamer? Amer?
Ha Hamer. Hamer, sir.
Amer.
Yes.
Okay, Christian. And you are called Christian.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now you are presently the marketing field assistant of the University of Nueva Caceres.
Not anymore, Your Honor.
Okay, what do you do now?
I'm a unit manager of AXA Philippines.
AXA Philippines. Is that connected with life insurance?
Yes, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. How about non-life insurance?
We also have that in AXA, Your Honor.
Are you in brokerage or you are a salesman for the company?
I'm a unit manager, so I both offer life insurance and also recruit financial advisors.
Okay, and how long have you been there?
I've been with AXA since November 2020.
Okay. Do you have a sales force under you?
Yes, Your Honor, there are about five of them, but they have not yet taken the exam with the insurance commission yet, so um they are not able to offer insurances yet.
You're a special a broker or agent for, or you are connected directly with AXA.
I am connected directly with AXA, Your
Okay,
Honor.
yeah. Not on a brokerage agreement. Okay, now you are presently taking up law with the also with the University of Nueva Caceres,
Yes, Your Honor.
and your record here shows that you started your law studies there in 2012.
Yes, Your Honor, that is correct.
Uh, what was the reason for the gap in your studies?
Um, after I passed the licensure exam for nurses, I took a scholarship exam just to try my luck in law school. And then when I got it, I went to law school. But after the second semester of my first year, there was a financial problem in the family that I had to help my parents work. That's when I took methods of teaching and applied in DepEd. So halfway through second year, I had to drop out of law school because I was assigned in a far-flung barangay here in Camarines
What year are you now in the College of Law?
I'm on my fourth year, Your Honor.
So you will be graduating sometime in July this year,
Yes, Your Honor. I think it would be July, August, I think.
August.
But our second semester would be ending by May or April.
How's that? By
Um,
April?
by April or May, we're already done with the second semester. But the ceremonies, the graduation ceremonies, would be, I think, July or August because of the pandemic, Your Honor.
So when do you consider yourself as a non-student anymore? Upon graduation or upon the completion of the second semester?
I think upon graduation, because
Upon
there might because the period between the end of the second semester and graduation, there are a lot of things that have to be considered whether or not we would be able to graduate.
okay. Are you aware that appointment cannot be issued to someone who is no longer a student?
Yes, Your Honor.
Oh, you're aware of that, and you have only a few months. No? You're taking your
Um,
chances on that.
yes, Your Honor, because we don't know what the future holds, and it's better that I have took the opportunity to apply because this pandemic might take longer than necessary. So probably by then, by the time that I might be appointed, that I would be appointed, I might still be a student.
Okay. You are a registered nurse and likewise a registered teacher.
Yes, Your Honor.
And which between the two are you better familiar with?
I would like to believe that I am better as a teacher
Uh,
because after passing the licensure exam for nurses, I didn't practice anymore. It was the encouragement of my parents that led me to take up nursing. Most
mhm.
of them are in the same profession. I was supposed to go to med school after nursing, but a lot of things happened along the time that I was in college. I found out that I considered a different path from the course that I was
Okay.
taking then.
You are on top of the list among the student applicants in terms of the numbers of recommendations that were submitted to us. In your case, you had a judge, three lawyers, and a doctor recommending you. How did you get this
Yes.
recommendation? Did you ask
Um,
them one by one, or did they voluntarily tell you that they will be recommending you?
the stories for each one of them is different. For the
Mhm.
university president, Dr. Lauraya, I was called upon by Dr. Lauraya during to be the brand ambassador of our department. And that was when I mentioned that I would not be available on a particular date because I am applying for a position in lab. And that's when she asked whether or not she can help me in one way or another. And I told
Mhm.
her that probably a recommendation letter could help me in my
Okay.
case. As for Dean Ismael, I worked with him. I'm still working with him under um, a technical working group commissioned by the Legal Education Board to craft the Magna Carta for law students, and he is our advisor. So he also volunteered to give me a recommendation. As for the other three, our dean mentioned in the faculty that I'm applying for a position in lab, and that's when some of my professors said that they might be able to give me a recommendation because they also asked how they might help me in applying.
Okay. So, what credentials do you have which are relevant to your application? Aside
I
from
believe
being a
my
registered nurse and a registered teacher.
Your Honor, I think the topmost credential or accomplishment that I have to make me be qualified for the position that I am applying for, representing the law students, would be my chairmanship of the technical working group commissioned by the Legal Education Board to craft the Magna Carta for law students.
Okay.
In the process of crafting that, we've been consulting with different stakeholders, trying to take a look at what are the areas that can still be um, improved. And in fact, this coming Friday, we're gonna conduct the public consultation in the morning, the students across the Philippines, and in the afternoon with the deans of of different law schools. So
So you
I
have been
think that
affiliated
is
with the
the
Legal Education Board, Christian?
yes, Your Honor. We applied back in 2019 for the position of for a slot in the technical working group commissioned
Hmm.
to make the Magna Carta for law students, and then I was one of those who were selected. And then in the group that they formed, they elected who would be the chairman, and I was the one selected by the different students representing their regions.
Okay. How long did you sit there as the chair of the technical working group?
We started September 2019, and we are still working until now. I think we would see it until it gets passed into a legislation.
Okay. Now you mentioned in your attempt letter that you are a working student from one of the poorest provinces in the country. To which province are
Yes,
you
Your Honor.
referring, Christian? And why did you say that?
Uh, I had to mention that I am a working student in one of the poorest provinces in the country, which is Camarines Sur, because I want the I want the JBC to be able to see the situation and the context where I am placed at. We are not really rich in opportunities here in terms of jobs or in terms of I am not a privileged uh, I'm not privileged enough to work to study full time without having to work. So I had to mention that so that the board also can see that I am a person that is I'm a multifaceted person, that I am not only a student, I'm also member of the labor force, I'm also a leader, I'm also capable of doing other things aside from those.
Okay. You also mentioned in your letter that you could use your experiences in life to make legal education more inclusive for people who have less in life, like yourself. Are you talking about the students here who cannot afford to go to law school, or and how do you plan to do that if ever you get to be appointed?
I'm talking about both of the students who are not able to go to law school, probably because of the lack of opportunities to thrust them upward, but also of the people who do not get access to legal assistance or to legal services. Um, One of the things that I am set out to do if I become appointed into the board, to the legal education board, is make to to create a paradigm shift in the focus of how legal education is conducted from a theoretical framework to more of an app to more of a pragmatic one, where we would have a clinical exposure. So it hits two birds with one stone. You get to help the people who needs legal assistance the most, while the students are able to practice becoming a lawyer in at least in a guided situation, in a guided setup by a supervising lawyer. So I think that's the topmost um, thing on the list of the things I am set out to do if I do become part of the legal education board.
So, what are the programs, long term and short term programs that you have in mind, bearing or bearing in mind, likewise, the one of the general objectives of the legal education boards, which is to increase awareness among members of the legal profession of the needs of the poor, deprived, and oppressed sectors of society.
There are three priorities that I am set out to do, that I have set myself to do. The first one is to create the clinical work that I was mentioning a while ago, to shift the focus on practice. But secondly, to create skills training so that the students, even though they are students and are not members of the legal profession yet and are not yet practicing lawyers, they are able to prepare themselves so that when they become lawyers, they are able to represent their clients the best. And lastly, I will make sure that the study of law will become as interdisciplinary as possible. And when I say interdisciplinary, I mean that since as lawyers, we will not be only focusing on one field of work, we're not going to focus on one um, nature of an industry. So I think the study of law should also be incorporated with all other fields, especially because the practice of law branches out into different fields. So I think that's the long term direction that I am seeing with my inclusion in the board.
Okay. So, aside from your long term and short term programs, will you be introducing or proposing to introduce amendments to the Republic Act 7662, known as the Legal Education Reform Act, that would be beneficial to the student sector?
Um, I think with regards to RA 7662, or the Legal Education Reform Act of 1993, I think the topmost reform that I would want to happen is to that I would want to initiate is the portion where law school should be able to design their own curriculum, their own curricula. For the reason that I think that number one, because we are in an archipelago, but number two, because of the nature of regions across the country, I think law school should only be required to cover core bar subjects, but the rest of the curriculum should be depending on the specialization and the advocacies that certain law schools would want to have. Like for example, here in Camarines Sur, the struggle the struggles are most of the time related to laborers, to farmers, because we have a lot of agricultural lands here. So I think that should be the direction of the law schools, where which are situated in places. So at least in that way, law schools are given the opportunity to to craft the curriculum that they think is needed in the community that they belong to. So at least we get to to hone lawyers who are tailored fit to address the needs of their own community.
Christian, one of the powers of the board is to adopt a system of legal, continuing legal education.
Yes, Your
Apparently,
Honor.
this is in conflict with the or in conflict with the Supreme Court's mandatory, continuing mandatory legal education (MCLE). What do you intend to do with
Yes.
this?
I think the case of Pimentel versus the Legal Education Board has clarified the difference between what the Legal Education Board should has jurisdiction over and those that it does not. Specifically because in continuing legal education, that would be the people that would be involved there are already members of the bar who are already in the practice of law. And I think it's not anymore within the ambit of the power of the legal education board to monitor and supervise those who are already members of the bar. So I think as long as we keep the two areas delineated from each other, there would not be any conflict.
Okay, let's go to DNDUP Accord. Even without the abrogation of the DNDUP Accord, do you think enforcers would still conduct legitimate operations in any of the UP campuses in the country? Why or why not?
Even okay, if I would like to clarify the question. The question was,
Okay.
even if the accord was not abrogated, the law enforcers could
Uh-huh.
still conduct
Would
legitimate
yes.
operations. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I think it has really been happening that law enforcers are able to go into UP campuses across the country, even with the existence of the UPDND accord. Only that then what they had to do is to seek the consent or the approval of the administration before they can do so. Because of the abrogation, they need not do that anymore. So just like any other places, they can go in there and conduct their operations. So that's the main difference that I think was crucial to to the abrogation of the UP DND Accord, because had they not abrogated the accord, they would need to still get they would still need to get clearance from the people they think are working against the government, probably people who they do not trust to be upholding the best interests of the students. And I think that's where the confusion lies, because we are talking of two factions who do not really trust each other anymore. So the basic I think for an accord to work, both sides must be trusting in each other, and that trust must be maintained.
Okay, Christian, my last question. What is your philosophy of legal education?
Um, I think legal education should be not just a preparation for the practice of law, but it should be a lived experience in itself. I think when students are so concentrated on the bar exam, they fail to enjoy the entire process of getting there, such that it it burns them out, and that happens to a lot of people. That's why they do not finish the study anymore. So I think law school, the study of law, should be enjoyable, and we can only do that if we live the experience in itself and not just look at it as a precursor to the next stage of our life.
Okay. Okay, Christian, that was my last question. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Judge De Monteverde.
Thank you, Edith. Thank you.
Thank you. The next to interview Mr. Hamer is Justice Noel Piham. Justice Noel
Thank you.
Jimenez Piham.
Thank you, Attorney Edith. Good afternoon, Mr. Hamer.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Uh, you are a teacher, you are a nurse, and you are a law student.
Yes, Your Honor.
From your perspective, who should be admitted to law school?
Hmm. I think the person that should be admitted to law school are those who are committed to finish it, to really see it to the end. And as long as they have the minimum qualifications to do that, and these are basically subjects that they need to finish to take up during their pre-law course. I think what is most important is the attitude that they have towards finishing it and
Hi.
really becoming a lawyer in the future, because there are a lot of people who are smart, who are skillful, but because of the lack of attitude, because of the lack of grit to actually finish it and see it through the end, they fail to finish the entire process of, and they fail to get across.
Are you in favor of an
Ano
admission
nga?
test
Ayaw
by
nga,
law
sige,
school?
pwede.
Um, I'm sorry. The question was whether or not I am in favor of an admission test. Um, I am in favor of a test that seeks to see the minimum qualifications that students have, especially because the schools where they went for their pre-law might have varying standards. But apart from assessing whether or not they possess the minimum competencies that they would need in order to survive law school, I think it should be up to the schools themselves to determine who they want to be admitted into their school, because probably these are the people that would be aligned with their advocacies and aligned with their specialization. So I think aside from the minimum competencies that can be assessed by the admission test, it should be up to the law schools themselves to to admit students depending on their preference.
When you speak of minimum competency, does it include physical, mental, and psychological competency?
I believe there are series of tests which can be administered to assess this. Like when we were applying for this position, we went through some a psychological test conducted by JBC. So I think that can also be um, assessed in an exam that can be facilitated, just so the students are actually prepared for the emotional baggage that law school can do to them. So I think that includes the whole. We should be able to look at the holistic preparedness of the students. So we're not really into saying whether or not they're not meant to be lawyers or not, but whether or not they are prepared to get into law school at that point in time where they took the exam, because when they are already in law school, um, the emotional and the physical requirements that the study of law would require from them might be overwhelming from what they thought it would be. So I think it's important to assess whether or not they are ready for those challenging ordeals.
From your perspective, who should be admitted as law professors in law school?
I think the law professors should be leaps ahead of their students when they would be guiding the students themselves. So I think these it's safe to assume that these are the professors who have a master's degree in law, so that they have an ascendancy, they have an educational ascendancy over that they teach,
Are you in
because
favor? Are you in favor? I'm sorry for interrupting. Are you in
it's okay.
favor of administering an admission test for law professors?
I am not, Your Honor, for the reason that I think, number one, when they pass the bar, it's safe to presume that they possess the basic competencies needed to for the practice of law. But secondly, I think that the law schools themselves have a natural incentive to select the best lawyers who would be teaching in their faculty. And I think a standardized test would take away this prerogative that should belong to educational institutions. As I mentioned in my previous answers, law schools should be able to dictate, should be able to craft a curriculum based on what expertise they want to be they want to have, what kind of advocacies they want to forward, and what kind of specialization they want to have. So I think they should be given an opportunity to do that. And an admission test for law professors would might affect the process of them attaining that goal.
You want to screen students applying for law school, but you will give the benefit of a doubt to law professors applying to teach in law schools, and you will give them the presumption that they are competent. Is that what you're saying?
The difference, Your Honor, with the law students getting into law school is that um, the admission test, assuming they would only be determining the minimum, the test would only ascertain the minimum competencies that they have, is different from the bar exam, which is supposed to assess whether or not they have a holistic knowledge of the law, be- especially because there are 8 subjects and they were tested based on those 8 different subject matters.
Is it important that only law professors with profound knowledge of the law, with extensive experience in their field of specialization, and with good moral character be admitted into law school? Or do you consider them not important or non
I
essential?
I think these are the exact criteria that we should be looking for in the professors that the law schools would be commissioning to do the teaching, to do the education, because especially the difference between studying it and just looking at the codal, at the book, from listening to your professor discuss it, is because these professors are able to share experiences from the field. And if a professor does not have that profound experience, that expertise in talking about that subject matter based on what happened in the field, probably the quality of education that the students can also get might not be as good as those coming from a really expert, a real expert in that subject matter.
There are incidents of incompetent law professors, law professors who are charged with sexual harassment, law professors who are erratic in their behaviors inside the classroom. So, how do you vet law professors who might be psychologically deranged or immorally depraved unless you institute some kind of screening in the admission of law professors?
Your Honor, I believe that in the same light, in the same breath that we have the constitutional guarantee for the presumption of innocence, we can also look at the perspective that these law professors are presumed to be good, especially if they possess the credentials to support that claim. But once, of course, they committed something grave or something serious, they did a misconduct. That's why laws exist to take them off that responsibility. That's why, for example, us, I am the chairman of the committee who's crafting the Magna Carta for law students. That's why that straw law should exist in order to prevent these professors from exploiting and abusing their power over their students.
How do you know that the law school is hiring the best if you do not encourage law schools to make a background test, a background checking of law professors applying into the law school? The school is an important institution where you rear the education of students, young people, who will ultimately become professionals and ultimately run the country. So you're saying that You will just give them the presumption of regularity and not vet them at all. And as a member of the Legal Education Board, you will be you will not matter. That thing will not matter at all.
Um, the question previously, Your Honor, was whether or not I am in favor of creating a standardized test for law professors across
I'm
the
not saying
country.
standard test, an admission test, a screening test. That is what I'm asking.
Oh, I
I mean,
okay.
when you apply for job, isn't it? You apply for employment, you're interviewed, an examination is given, whether it be in government or in the private institution. So what makes a school different? Should you be more liberal in the admission of law professors?
I think I was mistaken in assuming, Your Honor, that you were referring to the same exam that the lab is conducting, like the
Assuming that
PhilSat.
I am referring to a written exams, is that something embarrassing to administer to an applicant who wants to join the faculty in a law school?
Let me clarify my answer, Your Honor. Um, I don't think that the lab should do a standardized test for all law professors who
I'm
would
not
be
asking for
admitted.
standardized test. I was
But
asking your perspective because you
okay,
will be supervising law schools, isn't it? I'm not saying that you will be the one to dictate whom to admit. I'm not saying that. My question was whether you
yes.
should vet people who wants to join the faculty in law schools.
And for that question, Your Honor, I think they should vet it. As I mentioned a while ago, I think law schools have the natural incentive to to select the best ones, and they can do this
So
by
you're saying
administering a
again,
test.
okay, although you have supervision over law schools, you will not say anything. Anyway, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You let the law schools take care of it. Is that what you're saying? Only
Just
call the attention of the law schools if there is a complaint against a particular law professor. That's not a
okay.
very proactive attitude.
Your Honor, I'm sorry. I have to clarify my answer. My answer is that the administration of the exam should be with the law school, but the legal education board should also make sure that these professors pass a certain standard. So to pass a certain standard, like because that would also be the proof in the future, assuming that there would be a complaint against a professor, it would be based on that assessment, so that we continuously learn about how people behave and how professors would eventually do their job based on the profile that can be that can be consolidated from their records with the school. So I think that the legal education board, as a body, as an authority on the matter, should make sure that both students and faculty members have the minimum competencies required and have the right set of values to
How
be
can
able
you
to.
how can you upgrade legal education if your emphasis is always on the minimum standards, minimum competency? How can you upgrade legal education if you will just be satisfied with the minimum? Should that be the
uh,
proper attitude?
I think the reason why I have this mindset is because as what was discussed in Pimentel versus the Legal
Okay,
Education
I
Board,
understand. So your perspective is the lab should be passive. It should not be proactive.
it should partner with the law schools in a sense that it does not
You didn't
step
answer
on.
my question. Should it be passive or proactive? You're saying it should be collaborative. That is what you're saying, correct?
So if I have to choose between being passive and proactive, then I would have to choose being proactive, Your Honor, because especially now that we are chartering territories which we have not yet seen in the past with the pandemic, with everything that is happening right now, I think that the Legal Education Board should take a
You said
more proactive role.
these are not new territories. These problems have been in existence many years ago, since the start of the educational system in the Philippines. These are not new problems. Anyway, you mentioned about the Magna Carta for law students. You're involved in that. That's very commendable. What is the historical origin of the Magna Carta?
With the one that we're working with, Your Honor.
No, the Magna Carta.
The historical origin of the Magna Carta can be dated back to the time of the royalties when there were still the monarchies were prevalent as a system of
More
government.
specifically, which monarchy?
The English
Uh,
monarchy.
I will help you. It's the Magna Carta Libertatum, which is a royal decree of rights acceded to by the monarchy during the time of King John of England.
Ah,
It's a decree of rights.
yes, Your Honor.
Is
Thank
it
you for that
possible
information.
that the Magna Carta of law students, once finalized and once realized in the form of legislation, may conflict with academic freedom? And if so, how will you resolve it? Because you have the Magna Carta of teachers, you have the Magna Carta of students, and probably a code of conduct. By the way, is there a code of conduct among law schools?
I don't believe there is, Your
Should there
Honor.
be? Should there be a
But
code of
I think
conduct?
there should be.
Oh, that's the first
Um,
thing you should work into. That is the code of conduct among law schools. So there is unanimity in objectives and ideals. Then you have the Magna Carta. Now, there is a Magna Carta for students and for teacher. In case of conflict, how would you resolve it?
should there be a conflict between the Magna Carta for teachers and the students? I think it should be resolved in favor of the students, specifically because of
Because
the
you represent the student sector.
yes, Your Honor, but also because of the priority that the Constitution and our laws are giving to vulnerable sectors, and between the teachers and the students, between the two of them, it is the students who are more vulnerable in that setting. The same way how we accord, how we lean in favor of labor should they come in conflict with the employer.
Now let's talk of specialization. So you have the NMAT for doctors in admission to medicine, then you have an admission test for lawyers. In your opinion, there are no right and wrong answers. Should law schools be structured in such a way that they teach everything about the law, but like medical schools, in addition, they also offer specialization in certain fields, so that law school A it offers all courses in law, but it specializes on constitutional law. Law school B specializes on banking and agrarian laws, things like that. Is that possible?
I think that's a direction that we can consider. But I believe that um, the focus right now, especially with the kind of
You're not
justice
you're not
system, with
you're not proactive. You're only talking of the status quo. Anyway, my last question, because my time is up. Uh, in law school, you were given the Antonio Moran Season Scholarship. Who is Antonio Moran Season?
Antonio Morancison, Your Honor, is the founder of of the University of Nueva Cáceres. He was a lawyer himself. He strived to be who he was during the time, and the scholarship was named after him in honor of his contribution to the establishment of the UNC School of Law.
Have you met him?
No, Your Honor.
He died already.
He passed away so many years, decades ago.
I have known him since childhood because I studied in the University of Nueva Cáceres, where I finished elementary and high school. All right. Thank you very
Wow.
much, Mr. Hamer, for your time and good luck.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Kiham. The next to interview Mr. Hamer is the Honorable Judge Toribio E. Ilaw Jr.
All right, thank
Your
you,
Honor.
Tony Edit.
Good afternoon, Your
Welcome.
Honor.
Yes, good afternoon, Christian. What at present you are connected with AXA?
Yes, Your Honor.
AXA, is this an insurance corporation?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you are no longer practicing as a licensed or licensed teacher and licensed insurance agent.
Not anymore, Your Honor.
So, what's interested you in pursuing this application to be a member of the Legal Education Board representing the law students? There's no
Um,
debate that you are an incoming fourth year student.
I'm already a fourth year student, Your Honor. But what encouraged me to apply for this position is my membership in the technical working group. Actually, I am the chairman of the technical working group for Magna Carta for law students. I think that was what encouraged me the most because I think that there are a lot of things um, that I can also do if I do become a part of the legal education board.
All right. In your application letter, you stated that, and I quote, I can speak for those who have been deprived by birth lottery like me. What do you mean by this?
Um, a previous sentence to that would you would be able to see that I mentioned that I am a working student. So I think that the legal education should be as inclusive as possible for people like me who do not have the luxuries in life to to just study and not work anymore alongside that. So I think the structures in place should also be reformed in a way that would accommodate for such inclusivity. And that can only happen when it understands that not all people are of the same footing, have the same abilities, have the same resources. And I think those are the things that I want to press on if I do become a part of the board to ensure that the policies and the things that the legal education board would do would be able to accommodate even those who have less in life.
Well, your application letter seems to be impressive and a touching one. Uh,
Thank you, Your
like
Honor.
to have contemplating or asking for sympathies from the board or from the Judicial Bar Council.
Not really asking for sympathy or honor, but I want you to be able to know me as a whole. I also mentioned there that there were subjects that I was dropped because I had to leave law school in between the semester because I had to look for a job and I was assigned by the Department of Education in a far-flung barangay where it takes about an hour to go there and an hour to get back. So at least you have a context of who I am and the things that I experience in the process of being where I am. And that would obviously be reflecting on the philosophies that I have, the values that I possess based on the lived experiences that I had growing up.
Oh, why not address your application letter to the PCSO asking
I
for
think, Your Honor,
financial assistance?
I think that if I do get a financial assistance from PCSO, which is also a similar story with a lot of other people, I think that that help would end with me. But I think that if I apply in a position that is responsible for policy making, for implementation, I think that the ripple effects of what I can do can cut across generations, and that is what I want to do, so
All
that
right,
I'm not just a passive recipient of the help, but I become an active factor in propelling things that can uplift the lives of people.
all right, from your records as well as from your answers to the questions of my colleagues, revealing that you are part of the technical group of drafting the Magna Carta for students, and not even
Yes, Your Honor.
preempting. What do you think are the common problems that law students encounter?
Um, I think the law schools and law students in general are facing problems with regards to the structure of legal education, especially with the Legal Education Reform Act of 1993, um, authorizes the Legal Education Board to create the curriculum and impose it on law schools, giving them a little area for them to put specializations in advocacies. I think it should be flipped in a way that there are only core bar subjects included in the curriculum, and we leave it to the law schools to determine the areas that they want to specialize in and the advocacies that they want to forward, especially because these law schools are part of communities, and we want these law schools to consider the context and the situation of the community where they belong to in crafting the curriculum, so that their graduates, the lawyers that they would produce, would be able to quickly respond or to immediately respond to the needs of their community before they move on elsewhere.
So simply you believe that there are many reforms that need to be done, and you hope to be a part of the change as a member of the Legal Education Board if appointed. What
That is
particular
correct, Your Honor.
areas in the Philippine legal education, in your opinion, needs reform? What area?
Um, first, First and foremost, as I mentioned, Your Honor, the part where the Legal Education Board would be the one to create the curriculum, but also in terms of how the Legal Education Reform Act of 1993, or RA 7662, um, presses and gives more premium to knowledge and to theories rather than skills. I think that though we are in the process of getting there because of CLEP, which was initiated a few months ago, but a few years ago rather. But I think that there should be more emphasis on the skills building rather than the simple acquiring of knowledge.
That you mentioned that the Legal Education Board was created by Republic Act 7662, but still in 1993. And the powers and functions of the Legal Education Board, however, are mostly or involve periodic and not daily tasks, which already been accomplished by the Legal Education Board today, while
Yes.
others were stepped down as unconstitutional.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, how did the court pass upon the constitutionality of PhilSat? That is
Um,
in
os-
Pimentel versus Legal Education Board.
In Oscar Pimentel versus the
And
Legal
the court has
Education Board, Your Honor, um, the the Supreme Court upheld the power of the Legal Education Board to set minimum standards as by which law students and law faculty faculty members can be admitted into the law school, and the power of the Legal Education Board to supervise these law schools. However, it struck down several areas of the law, specifically the area where it would already step on the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, especially the part where there should be a continuing legal education, especially the part where continuing legal education should be an aspect of legal education. Because by virtue of RA 7662, the Legal Education Board has been given the authority to supervise legal education in general. So the part of the of the law that says that continuing legal education is part of legal education was passed as unconstitutional for the reason that the people that would be involved here are already members of the bar, and the Legal Education Board should only have jurisdiction over people who are in the study of law, not the practice of law. It also struck down the part imposing mandatory attendance to lawyers in the programs and the education initiatives by the Legal Education Board. But the PhilSat was upheld as as an exam to assess the minimum qualifications of students, but the pass and fail system of PhilSat was struck down as violative of academic freedom.
All right. Admittedly, the Supreme Court in Pimentel versus Legal Education Board declared that legal education is an executive function, as it is,
Yes, Your
but
Honor.
a composite of the entire Philippine education system, and that the legal education or the study of law is not the practice of law.
Yes, Your Honor.
The the court leaves so many answers, as in fact it was really a divided decision.
Hmm.
But to mention that the province of Congress is to make and repeal laws, while the judiciary to interpret laws. So if there is a possibility of having a new law, the Supreme Court will come up with different interpretation. Do you agree?
I think that the reason why there is a confusion or there is a conflict between what the what the law should be interpreted and what the Legal Education Board um, presupposes its power is because the Constitution itself has authorized the Supreme Court to be the one to regulate the practice of law, and of course that includes those who would be admitted to the bar, who would be able to graduate from the study of law. So I think in Pimentel versus Legal Education Board, it was clarified the province that um, the area that the Supreme Court has power over is the practice of law, while the Legal Education Board would be focused on the study of law. Now, if there is a law, another law for that matter, I think that law should be clearer in terms of setting the boundaries as to which is under the authority of which body, so that we would be able to prevent the the situation where they step on, or where the Legal Education Board can step on an area where it should be the Supreme Courts.
So do you agree with there must be a more aligned approach? Law students will be directed toward a uniform direction. with the goal of having more bar passers and adequately prepared lawyers in the practice of law. So it's imperative that lawmakers or all should consolidate and harmonize all this to the extent possible in the light of developments in the education sector and the legal profession to fully develop legal education in the country.
Yes, Your Honor.
Uh,
Um, it should be a collaborative effort for us to fully. It's always a work in progress. What we have right now is always a work in progress. We always adapt to the demands of the changing times, and I think that more than ever is the time for these bodies to collaborate so that we can come up with something better.
all right, so Christian, if appointed to the lab representing the law students, what will be your powers and functions as such LEB member?
Um, Regardless of the sector that we are representing, I think the power that I would have as a member, as a regular member of the board, is to vote or not vote, to manifest my disagreement or to manifest my support in the directives that the legal education board would come up with. And I think that specifically as a member representing the interests of the law
And
student sector, I would be focusing on the interests of the students. But in terms of the powers and the responsibilities, I think it's the same with everyone else in the board.
and how do you plan to assert your opinions or insights to the board?
I think that the legal education board would the reason why there are different members representing different sectors is because I think the board wants to come up with the directive and an order that is most inclusive, that is coming from different lenses and perspectives. So I think that I would be speaking in behalf of the students what I experience, and that's where my experiences, my struggles coming to where I am today would play out, because I would be sharing my experiences, sharing the experiences and stories of other law students that I was able to meet in my journey towards become a lawyer, and those are the things that I would share to the rest of the board that I hope they would consider and they would vote in favor of.
All right, you are a product of University of Nueva Cáceres.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes,
I'm, I'm,
Christian.
yes, po, Your Honor. I'm a product of the University of Nueva Cáceres.
All right, is it your sentiment that quality education should not be limited to Metro Manila?
Yes, Your Honor. Um, in one of the speeches that I made addressed to the students, I think that the direction should be the empowerment of the provinces, and that also benefits Manila in a way, because when people do not flock in Manila, the traffic would also be eased. That would also be um, would improve. The traffic jams would also be declogged, and people would not have to leave their families behind in order to seek for what they believe is quality education.
I do mean to say that the product of the provinces are at par from the products of those who came from Metro Manila.
No, Your Honor. I'm saying that right now the focus is in Metro Manila. The best professors are there. The best opportunities are there, and I think these opportunities should also be um, spread out to the provinces like ours, so that these opportunities can also be within the grasp of people like me who might not want to leave my family behind just to get those opportunities.
Don't you think such denigrating the integrity of those who came from Nueva Caceres?
No, Your Honor, because I think that um, for the longest time, the University of Nueva Cáceres has been
Nueva Caceres.
producing has been producing a lot of top-notch individuals. Like Justice Tiham a while ago shared that he graduated from University of Nueva Cáceres in his for his elementary years, and I think that even if the schools are good, even if the schools are good, even if the professors are doing the best that they can, if opportunities are seen as limited to those in the metro, people would always think lesser of those in the province. So I think it's a matter of mindset, not really of the realities. Because when people choose to bloom where they are planted, that's when they would stay in their province, they would contribute in the development of their province, and that's when they become at par with everyone else. So I am proud to say that I never left Naga, I never left Bicol throughout my years in the academe, and I want to keep it that way so that I can I can show that I can bloom where I am planted, so that everyone else can also do the same and
And
not
you and
brain drain the province.
you also forgot to mention Justice Ramon Cruz of the Court of Appeals
Ah,
sa product of Nueva Caceres.
yes, actually, we posted about Justice Cruz when he was part of the shortlist to be appointed by the president to the Supreme Court, and he's really one of the pride of our law school.
And not to mention Secretary Salvador Panelo. It's likewise a product of Nueva Caceres. Nueva
Yeah,
Caceres.
Caceres
Caceres.
po. Yes, Your Honor. Secretary Panelo is also graduated for his pre-law, I believe, from the University of Nueva Cáceres. So I think there are a lot of good people that can come in the province, only that the mindset is that there is an imperial Manila, which I don't think people in the metro also would want to continue to hold, because it also imposes too much expectations and burden on them. So I think if the notion is dissolved, we get to distribute the opportunities as well.
You likewise failed to mention the Lenny Heron Robredo, also a product of the said university. Am I correct to
Um,
say it?
yes, Your Honor. VP Lenny is a product of the University of Nueva Cáceres School of Law in particular. Along with Justice Cruz, she graduated from our law school, and she's one of the people that I really look up to, because she is able to show everyone that a working mom in a province can also um, achieve the things that she wants to be, the dreams that she has for herself. So I think um,
How about Bong Bong? Ay, sorry.
Bongbong Marcos, Your Honor.
Alright, please continue. I didn't hear your last words.
Ah, so I am fond of people who
Yes,
are
Christian,
empowered.
still there?
Yes, yes, Your Honor. Yeah, you can't hear me po. Hello?
Judge Ilaw, can you hear us po?
Yes, yes. How about Bong Bong? Ay, sorry, Bong Bong. Or a single Bong, Herona.
Bong Herona.
Do
I'm
you
not
know
really
him?
fam. Mm,
Bong Herona, the
mm,
uncle of Lenny Robredo.
I might heard of him po.
Yes,
I might have heard of him po. But I'm not really familiar where he graduated and where he is now.
all right. So express your thoughts about this equality of education in the far-flung provinces. So, if appointed to the Legal Education Board, how do you intend to address this and improve the quality of education in the provinces as well? What particular steps are you going to undertake?
I think to be able to do this, I would move for more leeway for law schools to structure their curricula in a way that would allow law students to have more experiences in the field so that they can already experience the struggles that their future clients would have. And at the same time, I would also want that the curriculum that the prerogative to structure the curriculum be given to the law schools, and only a portion of which would be allocated for core bar subjects or those which are really necessary, so that the curriculum can be there are subjects integrated in the curriculum that would focus on the specializations and advocacies that the law schools would want, because as we can see, since we live in an archipelago and we live in a rather segmented country, there are different struggles that every region, that every province are facing. And I think the law schools should be able to focus on what their province would need the most, so that the products of their law school would be able to immediately address the needs of that community that it belongs to.
All right, my last question, Christian.
Yes, Your Honor.
There is one word in the English language that is always pronounced incorrectly. What is it?
Incorrectly.
Why do you
The
say
word incorrect.
why do you say
Um,
incorrectly?
because it's the one word in the English language which is meant to be pronounced that way, and people already agreed altogether to pronounce it that way.
So you are incorrect or correct?
I am correct to say that the word that you are referring to is the word incorrectly.
All right, that was my last and final question. Thank you,
Thank you, Your Honor.
Christian. That good luck.
Thank you.
Yes, Michelle. Thank you. I edit.
Thank you.
I,
Open na ako, Pet. O, kanina
Oh, nag-ano,
video ako na po na ano.
having
Not
problem.
alert. Oh. Thank you very much, Edith. Good afternoon, Mr. Hammer. You mentioned a lot of people from Bicol, especially those who graduated from Nueva Cáceres.
yes, Your
How
Honor.
about the past chairman of the LEB? Do you know him?
Yes, Your Honor. Attorney Emerson
Akende.
Akende. Yes, Your
Oh,
Honor.
do you agree with the decision? Well, and before that, why do you know him?
Um, we met when I was accepted as a member of the technical working group commissioned to do the Magna Carta for law students. We met there, we were introduced. He mentioned that he used to be the dean of the University of Santo Tomas, Legazpi. And then we got acquainted after that.
I see. The decision in Pimentel versus Leb is not yet final up to now. There are several motions for reconsiderations, which the court is having difficulty resolving. Now, being the case, the decision not yet being final, uh, do you agree with the position of Attorney Akende or Chairman Akende, ex-Chairman Akende, in his positions in Pimentel?
I think his positions were that it's within the purview of the legal education board to administer the PhilSat and make it and create a pass or fail system. Also to say that continuing legal education is part of legal education. But um, I do not agree with those things, with those positions, for the reason that I think in Oscar Pimentel versus Legal Education Board, it was mentioned that the people who would be involved, for example, in the section involving continuing legal education as part of legal education, the people who would be involved there are already members of the bar who are already in the practice of law. So to cover them, to make them a part of the purview of the legal education board is, I think, is erroneous, if not an overstep, because obviously there's a difference between us enunciated in Oscar Pimentel versus Legal Education Board. There is a difference in the study of law and the practice of law. So in that area, I think I have to agree, and I personally agree with the Supreme Court in declaring that. But secondly, in the area of pass and fail, the pass and fail system of the PhilSat, I also disagree with the position that the Legal Education Board should have the power to say that these particular law students should not be admitted in law schools, particularly because 766 RA 7662, or the Legal Education Reform Act of 1993, has um, empowered LEB to come up with minimum qualifications and not really to control, but only to supervise and facilitate law schools. And there is, as
But
we
it
know,
can
a difference
regulate. But it can
between,
regulate.
yes, Your Honor,
Cannot
it can
control.
regulate,
Cannot. It can supervise. It cannot control. But can it
yes,
regulate?
Your Honor.
What is the extent of the
Um,
regulation?
I think the extent of the regulation is the academic freedom. So the
It should not.
purview of the legal
The
education.
regulation should not transgress the academic
Yes,
freedom
yes, Your Honor.
as described in Pimentel, citing Justice Frankfurter. Okay. Now, you read the case. Did you read the other opinions of the other justices? Their separate opinions.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I was not able to read through that. I was I only read from lawfil.net, and it does not provide for the separate opinions. But I will look into it and read the Iskra version, so that where the separate opinions are part of the document.
In that case, it was stated that the NMAT regarding the admission of medical students was declared constitutional, uh, and PhilSat was declared as unconstitutional. Uh, what were the descriptions of the Supreme Court, which differentiated the two.
If I'm not mistaken, what the how they differentiated the two was with regards to the capability of the purview of the law schools in admitting the students, because in NMAT, no one really fails NMAT unless they do not get, I think, a grade of 50. So I think the NMAT itself does not prohibit students, except if they fail to meet the minimum standard. They are not prohibited to enter into a medical school as long as the medical school would accept them based on their requirement for admission. So in PhilSat, there is a pass or fail system. So even if law schools are willing to admit a certain student, if they failed in the PhilSat, they would not be able to do so and wait for another year or another SEM.
In in 3 words, can you describe what the Supreme Court of, in 3 words? Can you mention the three uh, words mentioned by the Supreme Court in describing FIRSAT, in declaring it unconstitutional? What were those 3 words? Oh,
I
you
have to
remember?
admit, Your Honor, that
You forgot?
yes, Your Honor, I'm sorry. I have to admit that I did not pay particular attention
Oh,
on those
the
words.
FIRSAT was declared unconstitutional because it is exclusionary, restrictive, and qualifying. Anyway, you already explained the difference. Now, a certain applicant mentioned a Magna Carta of law students earlier, but when I asked him about it, he said he has not read it. Now, I learned that you were part of the TWG working on the Magna Carta of students. In the draft,
Yes, Your Honor.
what are the essential rights of the of law student? You have seen, you are a member of
Um,
the TWG.
yes, Your Honor. I am the
Oh,
chairman of the
I
technical
see.
working group.
What are the essential rights of the law student? This is just a
In the
proposal at
working
this period, right? At this time.
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, it would be by Friday we would be doing a public consultation amongst law students across the country, clustered into different regions, and the deans of the law schools in the afternoon. So in the draft that we came up with, there are different sections which enunciates different areas of rights. There are academic rights, there are health rights, there are also
What is the
rights
second?
with regards
Academic rights, and
health
what is
health and safety rights.
health and safety rights? Okay. And what else?
There are also special rights for those who have special needs, and we also came up with um, we provided for a grievance
Mechanism.
machinery where mechanism where the law schools would have to come up with a grievance mechanism to address the problems, because right now in our school, we do not have a student handbook specifically for law school. Although when I was governor of our student council, that was one of the things that I came up with. But we are in the process of having it approved. Now we want law schools to have their own grievance mechanism to address the conflicts within their law school. So those were the salient provisions of the draft that we came up with, among other things, like the right of the students to access their grades or to request that their grades, um, the process of coming up with the grades, if they inquire, would be explained to them. Because in status quo, the students do not really have that much power to request from their professors the breakdown of their grades. But by virtue of the Magna Carta for law students, we would want the professors to know that the students might ask for a breakdown later on.
Very good. Oh. That will be all, Mr. Hammer. You are excused. I've heard your answers to the questions of my colleagues. Thank you very much. You're
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justice Mendoza. That concludes
morning.
today's public panel interview.